Morant blows by Primo. Attack!
In the last 24 NBA seasons, on only 3 occasions have teams from the East achieved a combined record of more than 50% wins against teams from the West. These seasons have been in 2009, 2022, and 2023. When it finally looked like the Eastern Conference was taking the reins and had the best teams, the balance of the conferences seemed to have reversed once again. Of the top 15 in the offseason power rankings, 9 teams are from the West and only 6 from the East. An imbalance that'll surely be noticeable at the end of the season when the wins needed to reach the play-in are far apart in both conferences. Because really the best teams in each conference, Milwaukee and Boston in the East, and Denver and Phoenix in the West, are quite balanced. But after the top 4, most of the teams that are going to be lottery-bound are from the East, which leaves us with a very stacked Western Conference. All the teams in this conference have progressed in one way or another during the last months, and will most certainly be a part of the race to reach the playoffs. A race that's not going to be easy with the huge number of contenders who legitimately have a shot at the title. Obviously, the favorites to return to the top of the West are the Denver Nuggets, a team that's managed to keep most of the core that allowed them to lift the Larry O'Brien trophy, but has also lost part of its rotation. Bruce Brown and Jeff Green will be big veteran losses for a team in which players like Christian Braun have to take a step forward. But if one thing is clear, it's that Nikola Jokic's dominance has no limit, and it's to be expected that he'll continue to perform at the highest level for another season. A team that'll also need the playoffs version of Jamal Murray during the regular season, as the Canadian combo guard showed that he's amongst the league's elite during the past postseason. The Nuggets are a team that without any doubt is in the S tier of contenders, and should be one of the favorites to win it all. The only other team in the West that may be able to match up with them in terms of talent is the Phoenix Suns. After a crazy offseason by the team's GM James Jones, who managed to acquire Bradley Beal during the first weeks of July, the expectations for the Arizona team have multiplied. Devin Booker has proven to be one of the best players in the league, and Kevin Durant continues to be one of the NBA's deadliest scorers. But this offensive arsenal will be joined by the former Washington Wizards star, who also combines perfectly with a team philosophy based on ISO and mid-range shooting as offensive weapons. It's true that the roster has suffered a small downgrade at the center position by shedding DeAndre Ayton to receive Yusuf Nurkic, but in exchange, they've managed to increase the depth of their rotation. One team that's managed to do just that over the past year has been the Los Angeles Lakers. After Rob Pelinka managed to add the necessary pieces during the last trade deadline, the team's managed to keep the key part of the core that's managed to reach the conference finals during the last playoffs. LeBron James is entering his 21st year, but is still a top 10 player. And Anthony Davis has proven he's capable of performing like a top-tier star. However, the step forward taken by players like Austin Reeves and the additions of players like Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, Taurean Prince, or Gabriel Vincent does give Laker Nation a solid rotation that will allow them to go toe-to-toe with the 2 favorites in the Western Conference. However, the other Los Angeles franchise, the Clippers, are the perennial contender that never quite finds consistency. Since the Californian team got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in the summer of 2019, they've never been able to enjoy continuity to elevate the team. This has caused people to lose faith in a franchise that was destined to succeed. Although this illusion can be renewed with the potential arrival of James Harden, who's shown a strong intention to join the Clippers after demanding yet another trade. However, whether they get the beard or not, this may be the last chance to prove that the project has served its purpose, as its 2 stars will be free agents next summer. And California is a very competitive state right now. The Golden State Warriors can never be counted out when it comes to title contenders, a franchise that has also gone through a busy offseason in which they got Chris Paul from the Washington Wizards in exchange for Jordan Poole. A trade that most fans did not understand, as CP3's role in the Warriors can be a bit abstract. The truth is that a starting 5 with Paul, Curry, Clay, Wiggins, and Green may be a real possibility, which would be very difficult to defend, but also very easy to punish for the possible lack of athleticism and size. But once again, the team from the Bay Area can break the odds basically by having in its ranks the best point guard in NBA history. And the 5th team in the Pacific Division, the final team from California, is the Sacramento Kings. A group of players that have managed to break all the predictions after last season, even trading a player who's ended up being an all-star like Tyrese Halliburton. In exchange, they received another all-star who brought his previous success to Sacktown, Domantas Sabonis. His partnership with De'Aaron Fox has been unpredictably effective, which allowed them to reach the 3rd seed in a complicated West with a 48-34 record. Sacramento's maintained the core that brought them success with important pieces such as Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, and Keegan Murray. However, it remains to be seen if the team can repeat the feat of getting home court factor in the playoffs in an increasingly difficult conference. Another young team that's going through a similar situation to the Sacramento Kings is the Memphis Grizzlies, a young team that's blossoming after a rebuilding process and already boasts some of the league's top potential players such as John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., or Desmond Bane. However, after all the gun-related incidents, the league decided to suspend the Grizzlies star for 25 games, a loss that's further accentuated by the loss of Tyus Jones, who was one of the best backup point guards in the league and a perfect replacement for Ja, but has been traded to the Washington Wizards. So Desmond Bane will have the opportunity to be the first offensive option of the team during the early stages of the season, which may cause the player to gain experience as a leader that can help him gain even more confidence. However, the Grizzlies will have a tough time repeating last season's success in which they finished 4th in the Western Conference. And you could say with that, in a way, we've reviewed all of the teams that should be favorites to get their playoff berth after the regular season. A total of 7 teams that have managed to keep their most important pieces from last season, in which they already managed to reach the postseason, and that, except maybe in the case of Memphis, are not in a worse roster situation than the previous year. But this is where the depth factor of the wild Western Conference really comes in. There are plenty of rebuilds growing in talent that want to step up, yet will have plenty of competition to reach their goals. The Dallas Mavericks are a perfect example. A team that midway through last season added Kyrie Irving to their ranks, and throughout the offseason also acquired the services of Grant Williams. After the disappointing performance during the previous season, Luka Doncic's team is looking for the opportunity to make amends. A project that undoubtedly continues to generate many doubts on defense, as has been the case in recent years, but that has enough of an offensive arsenal to punish any defensive system. But at least Mark Cuban has managed to secure the re-signing of Kyrie, who looked like he could leave the Texas franchise at the end of his contract. So, given the circumstances, one could say that the Mavericks offseason has been pretty successful. Bookmakers put their wins line at 44, which wouldn't even assure them a playoff berth depending on how the season plays out. And one of the teams that will presumably be a direct rival of the Dallas Mavericks will be the New Orleans Pelicans, a franchise that also has a star who may have the potential to become a generational player, but, like the Clippers, has not enjoyed continuity. After a summer shaken by Zion Williamson's off-court issues, management hopes the player is finally focused on basketball. And the truth is that with a team that boasts additional talent in Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Jonas Valanciunas, expectations should be high. But those expectations will be directly related to the former Duke star's availability. The Oklahoma City Thunder can also say they have a superstar on their team, as is the case with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and it will certainly be their chance to establish their status. A team that'll also feature for the first time Chet Holmgren, who missed his entire rookie season due to injury, and is finally ready for his return to the courts. Sam Presti's team has a lot of assets going forward, so it wouldn't be surprising if the Thunder genius uses some of them to find a move to bolster the roster during next season. And another team that should be in the mix is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, a project that has a young player with a lot of potential is Anthony Edwards, and also has an inside game bathed in gold. I say that because their pair of big men will pocket $77 million during the next season. Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert will be 2 fundamental pieces for the success of Minnesota, which also has more talented players like Kyle Anderson or the highly rated by all NBA GMs, Jaden McDaniels. Up to 11 teams have good enough rosters to make their season's expectations to reach the playoffs. This means at least 3 teams will finish their season in April extremely disappointed. And it remains to be seen if their record will be good enough to reach the same goal in the neighboring conference. But then again, none of the remaining 4 teams have exactly a team made for tanking. The San Antonio Spurs just drafted the most hyped unicorn since LeBron James, although it's true that the rest of the roster doesn't match in terms of quality. However, it's assumed that this rebuilding project has already hit bottom, and an improvement should be expected during the next season. A similar situation to that of the Houston Rockets, who, after not having their first-round pick in next year's draft, have had to accelerate their building by investing millions in bloated contracts, such as those of Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. But they'll undoubtedly try to have the best season possible. For their part, the Portland Trail Blazers will enjoy a reconstruction that already has a quality foundation, such as players like Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, or the recently acquired Malcolm Brogdon and DeAndre Ayton, as well as the Utah Jazz, who already have Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, and Jordan Clarkson. A conference that seems more complicated than ever, and that has the potential to make history in its direct duel with the East. But one way or another, that's the way it's always been. So the teams in the West have no choice but to bring out their arsenal to have the best season possible, and hope that's enough to achieve their goals. But the reality is that long as some franchises succeed, others are going to fail. Because there aren't enough wins for everyone over the course of a season. Welcome to the Wild, Wild West.